Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to UCLA. My name is Yoram Cohen. I'm the director of the UCLA Yunus and Soraya's Nazarian Center for Israel Studies. And I'm very pleased to welcome you to our 5th Israel in 3D conference. With today's conference that focuses on Israel's civil society in action, we have a packed program with 3 panels that feature the young leaders of Israel's civil society who are working to shape their country's future. Now, I want to give a warm welcome to all of the speakers and moderators with us today, and particularly those who have come all the way from Israel to share with us their knowledge, experience, and passion. And for those of you who don't know us, that is the Nazarian Center for Israel Studies, ours is an academic center. It's interdisciplinary on the UCLA campus, and it promotes the study of the history, culture, and society of the modern state of Israel through a minor in Israel studies, research, seminar series, panels, workshops, symposia, and conferences such as the one that we have here today. Today's conference is part of our mission to reach beyond the UCLA campus and to bring informed, intelligent, and substantive discussion of Israel in all of its dimensions to the broader Los Angeles community. So, I hope that you will enjoy today in-depth discussions of Israel's civil society and come away with new information and insights. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce the chair of our Community Advisory Board, Sharon Nazarian. Sharon?
Thank you, Yoram, and good morning to all of you brave ones who are up Sunday morning early here with us. I want to also welcome all of our speakers and moderators, and thank you as well on behalf of our family of UCLA for making the long journey here. We really look forward to a fantastic day of learning and hopefully engagement as well. I also want to thank our conference sponsors. As you know, this cannot be possible without the support of the community that we live in. And I want to mention specifically the Jewish Community Foundation, the Rosalynn and Arthur Gilbert Foundation, the Israel Institute, First Media, and the Law Office of Shamir, Popkin, and Golan. So these are our wonderful supporters that make this day possible, and we want to thank you. We couldn't do without you. I also want to acknowledge the dedication and hard work of the Israel in 3D event committee. This was really truly a community effort, and the committee specifically helped in pointing out the kinds of speakers and events, panelists that we have today, and having that committee help us reach out to all corners of Israel and figure out who are the true young leaders that we need to hear from. The Nazarian Center staff, of course, we thank them and appreciate all their hard work. Our board members, who many of us are here today with us, we want to thank you for our continued support throughout the year and years. Yoram mentioned that this conference is part of the Nazarian Center's goal to educate about Israel in the classroom and throughout the community. We really hope that we can offer cutting-edge scholarship through our lectures, through our conferences, through our cultural events, and hopefully add more depth and nuance to our understanding of Israel. The theme of this conference could not be more important to us. It's about how dedicated Israeli citizens use their tremendous energy and talent to address social economic issues facing the country and the world, actually. The goal is to build an Israel that's more inclusive, equitable, and really light on to the other nations of the world. So to quote our esteemed Israeli president, Reuven Rivlin, the vision of living together, so needed in Israeli society, is one that deals with the shaping of a civil language, with the building of joint economy, and with the forging of a shared Israeli identity. You have his bios, but I do want to say that Daniel Housman is a volunteer, has helped us throughout this event, in the past has been there, and we want to thank him personally for being our MC today. So Daniel Housman, please come up.
Good morning, everybody. Boker Tov. Just a quick business. If everybody could just silence their cell phones so they don't go off during the speakers, that would be great. Just so you know, we will have a coffee and bathroom break after the first panel, so there'll be plenty of time to replenish and step away for a moment. We have some great speakers and minds here. And I'm here for three reasons. Let me just tell you briefly. The first is I'm a member of the steering committee of this event. And sitting last night with the speakers over dinner, I felt so lucky to have this window into the wonderful and complicated country that we all care so much about, and to convene these diverse and dynamic minds and personalities. And this is what the Nazarian Center does so well. I'm also here because I'm passionate about this topic of civil society in action. As you know, Israel was founded with a socialist state structure, a very top-down model with the government, the military, and the unions driving innovation. But the social contract has changed and greatly evolved, and it creates more fragmentation, but also a lot more opportunity for small groups and citizens, individuals, to make change. And as a small country with incredible diversity, we wanted to take a look from a couple of key angles. How can citizens have a bigger impact to point the way forward? I think the answers we'll all hear today are fascinating and inspiring, and if you want to spread the word and be more involved, you'll certainly have some great ideas from today. And finally, I'm also just here to move things along. So without further ado, let me introduce our opening speaker, who will return later to interview our keynote speaker. Tal Schneider is a blogger and journalist who is widely published and interviewed on TV news. She has the tough job of covering not just Israeli politics, but American politics too. So as well as covering the Knesset, she's logged many hours on the campaign trails of the United States and interviewed our politicians so she can make sense of it for Israeli audiences. So one thing is for sure, she has a very keen intelligence and a lot of great stories. Please welcome Tal Schneider.
Good morning. Welcome to the Center for Israeli 3D Community Conference. Dear Mrs. Sharon Nazarian, dear Professor Cohen, dear Mrs. Resnick, thank you, and dear Mrs. Housman, I wish to thank you for inviting me all the way from Israel. It is really, really thrilling to be here. I'm very excited. I want to start my opening remarks by quoting a noted Israeli scientist, the Nobel laureate and winner of the Chemistry Nobel Prize of 2009, Professor Ada Yonat. We are talking about civil society, so this is what I brought with me. I left a little bit of the Israeli daily politics behind me, and we're going to focus on civil society today. So probably no Trump and no Bibi. As I said, I want to start by quoting Professor Ada Yonat. While she stood on the banquet and gave her closing remarks for the Nobel Prize, she used her humor and wit to thank the Swedish driver who drove her around Stockholm. She thanked him for the podium. That was the funny part of her speech. But she also focused on the main theme, and she said that the verb to die was often mentioned with respect to her research, and the research of the ribosomes, of course. And I quote, "Many distinguished scientists said, 'My work on ribosomes, they are dead,' or 'this is dead-end road,' or 'you will be dead before you get there.'" She went on and said, "To my satisfaction, these predictions were proven wrong. The ribosomes are alive and kicking, and their high-resolution structure stimulated more advanced studies as well as imagination for many young people." Ada Yonat touched on a very sensitive subject. As you may all know, the Jewish language, for example, was already considered dead if you go back some 130 years. Israel as a nation looked at times far-fetched, a concept, not a practical matter. Yet visionary people, founding fathers and mothers of Israel, and other people from our lifetime, such as Ada Yonat, have amazing ability to revive issues, topics, interest in Israel, to put things back together into life, to make them current and lively. I'm a journalist. I'm a political blogger as well. I lived many, many years in Washington, D.C. I covered the U.S. administration and its relationship with Israel. I covered the daily politics, the rooting cows, the nitty-gritty of the D.C. and Jerusalem machine that you and me, were, watching it on TV or, going through the campaign trail, as mentioned, every day. Specifically in the last 48 hours, it's been amazing to watch. Yet, when I moved back into Israel in 2009, after many years in Washington, Israeli people looked indifferent to me, not caring. At times, they didn't even have an interest in poverty. They didn't care about housing prices. Even with respect to the peace prospects, everything looked a little bit numb. And following 2 years after that, in the summer of 2011, as a reporter, I've had the privilege and the luck to see the great occurrence, an awakening, not from the dead, but perhaps from hibernation. Israelis were sleepy, and suddenly something happened, and it became lively. The social justice protest of 2011 went from medium-sized protest of 10,000s to unprecedented numbers. It grew week by week, and it reached 500,000 people who took quietly to the Israeli streets. 500,000 for Israel, that's a huge number. I'm sure you all were aware of that. As you may all recall, it was genuine, it participated by the masses, it was noisy, but it proved to be in effect until today. It had an amazing influence on public discourse and public opinion. It was really eye-opening. With the combination of powerful discussion on social media, I think Israeli revived their Kol Israel Arevim Ze Leze, meaning Israeli, vouch for each other. It was brought back to life. It was the founding DNA of Israel, and it still is. And after the social justice protest, it became clear it's more in place than ever. This is not to say that all public discourse in Israel on social networks is nice and calm. Yet the 2011 protest and brought back Israel its prime characteristics: solicitude, engagement, purposefulness. Many outcomes of the 2000 social protests deem indirect, but personally I see them as related. If you take, for example, gender issues, women have always demanded better representation in Israeli politics. And indeed, in 2015, Israeli Knesset, I don't know if you're aware of that, has the highest representation ever. We are up to 27%. This is a very, nice number for Israel. It rises above the American number of 19% of representation in the Congress, both if you take into account both Senate and House of Representatives. Feminism activism in Israel is very vocal. Some groups that work against what we call the rape culture, maybe you are familiar with that all over Europe and other countries. Those groups are stronger, they're more effective. They manage to move things. It's a bit slowly, to my opinion, but it's very persistent. So it happens on a daily basis. Unlike what I've seen when I moved back to Israel in 2009, other areas of activism do take full front. I know that here in LA, you mostly hear and read about Israel foreign affairs, Israel relationship with the Trump administrations, but you don't hear probably enough about our issues such as education, welfare, housing, emerging markets, emerging energy markets, the high cost of living, consumer prices, and things that are very worrying to Israeli citizens. Sometimes they are more worrisome to us than what you think is the most worrisome issue. That's not to mean that peace is all neglected, but I do get the sense that currently Israelis, most of Israelis, if you look at the majority, they think that as long as Netanyahu is the elected prime minister, and maybe he will continue to be, the Palestinian track will not move forward. So in the meantime, they find it crucial to look inside Israel's society and deal with other problems, corruptions, or a phenomenon that we are identified in 2011, not me personally, but the social protest identified, that was the market concentration. The social protest actually helped push forward some of the legislation that aim to solve market concentration. And I'm sure you will hear about that later today from other participants in this conference. It is too soon to conclude with respect to the effects of that legislation. However, activists, journalists, other groups are not taking their eyes off the ball. If it were only for the Israeli government, we will be still stuck with the same old. So it's thanks to the work of many civil society groups and people that you maybe do not hear on the headlines, but they are working. In recent years, we saw I call it sometimes the offspring protest, or it's not the main social protest, but it is sprouts and branches of the main tree. One of them was the energy market protest we had in Israel. It was the gas protest. I don't know if you heard about that. For 2015, it was a major political issue in Israel. Me as a blogger and reporter, obviously I had to report every little bit of it. The streets where we saw in the streets waves of demonstrations with respect to energy consumer prices. This sounds like one of the things that are too complicated to deal with in a protest. It's very complicated, actually, and it was hard as a reporter to follow it, but it brought people to the streets, and it was amazing to see that the public pressure actually moved things forward. Not always in the right direction. Sometimes antitrust commissioner resigned and head of electricity commission resigned as well, but the government was under pressure and they had to change some of their decisions. They had to look again at whatever they made, the decision they made. And you, believe it or not, those events were actually part of the news cycle in the headlines. The debate is not done. Of course, energy prices are still very high, but due to a small group of activists, and the government knows that they cannot anymore finalize deals with business people behind closed doors. To conclude, and before we move on, I really want to encourage you, the participants in this conference, to look beyond the regular headlines, move subtly into our housing issues, or check out the problems we have with our healthcare system. Take note, there is a lot of reporting about Israel corruptions those days. It's really important to us as Israeli that people, you know, in the diaspora, the Jewish that are living around the world, will see a little bit further than what you read in the headline of the media here or the Israeli media. As we Israeli often say, and it's indeed a good cliche, "En li eretz acheret," which means obviously we have no other country, we have no other eretz. It will probably get us Israeli very happy. People like you, people who care deeply about Israel, will see that the social issues are very important to the people who wants to stay in the Eretz, in our Eretz. And by that I mean that Israel has to be more clean, better adapt with our energy demand, successful in solving our housing crisis, healthcare system, and more. So I think you're going to hear an amazing group of people that will touch also on cultural issues of Israel. They will represent Israel's civil society and our modern cultural. And I want to thank you for inviting me and letting me share those thoughts with you. And with that, I will return the podium to you.
Just want to introduce our first moderator. Eitan Arom is a staff writer for the Jewish Journal of Greater Los Angeles. He graduated from UCLA with bachelor's degrees in mathematics, economics, and communication studies. And in addition to LA, he's also worked in DC and Jerusalem. And before joining the Journal, he worked as a freelance journalist in Jerusalem, covering topics from business and entrepreneurship to religion. So please welcome Eitan Arom.
I wouldn't go any further without thanking the Nazarian Center for the invitation to moderate this panel, and specifically to Mara Resnick, who's been tireless. And it's just in general, it's nice for the Jewish Journal. Obviously, we have an eye towards Israel. It's nice to have a partner in our community that's looking for ways to expose Los Angeles to Israel in ways that go beyond the headlines, go beyond the conflict. And with that in mind, the topic of this panel is building a shared society. If I could just get my panelists to come up so you could take a look at them while I introduce them. Thank you. So each of these panelists isn't waiting for a ground shift in the way Israelis interact with each other, isn't waiting for the government. In each case, they're tireless advocates in the non-governmental sector for a shared society, for an Israel that works together. I think it's a pretty impressive project that they've each taken on. I had the chance to live in Jerusalem for a few months, the pleasure and the privilege of doing so, and it's the most cosmopolitan city on earth. And in general, Israel is a place where people have interacted for millennia. Sometimes they've gotten along, more often they haven't. So I think if we can make a shared society that works in Israel and promote diversity and equality there, then I bet we could do it anywhere on earth. So I am going to introduce them each individually. If you could hold your applause. I'll introduce them briefly, and you have more information in your programs. And after I introduce them, in the order that I introduce them, they'll each give a brief spiel about their organizations, the work that they do, and how they work to promote shared society in Israel. So we have Mickey Gitzin. Hope I'm pronouncing everybody's name right. They seem pretty straightforward. Mickey is the executive director of Yisrael Hofsheet, which translates to Be Free Israel. Also a current city councilor in the city of Tel Aviv Jaffa. His organization is a grassroots group that aims to influence public opinion in Israel on the issues of religion and state. Daniel Jonas is the chairperson of Havruta, an organization that promotes tolerance and acceptance of gay, lesbian, and transgender Israelis in Orthodox society, which is a tricky issue. He first became activated on the issue after the attack on the Bar Noir gay youth club in Tel Aviv in 2009. Joining us also is Noah Joshan Batshon. Noah is an organizational psychologist and the deputy executive director of Collective Impact, the Partnership for a Breakthrough in Arab Employment. And as she'll tell you, she's active in promoting more and better employment for Arab Israelis. Finally, joining us digitally from Israel, we have Penina Tamano-Shata. Penina is an Israeli lawyer, journalist, and politician, which is quite a combination. You don't quite see it in the United States. She was the first Ethiopian-born woman to hold a Knesset seat in Israel when she served as a member of the Yesh Atid party from 2013 to 2015. So, I'll stop talking for a little while, and beginning with Mickey, we'll hear from each of these very impressive individuals what they are doing to promote shared society in Israel.
I would like to take you to a small room in a living room in Tel Aviv 7 years ago, where a bunch of Israelis, most of them my age, sat and talked about the fact that they feel something uncomfortable or inconvenient with the situation going on in Israel. We felt that in many ways we are not represented. And we started to ask ourselves, what can we do in order to create a better Israeli society, a society that we feel there more at home? And many issues came about, and we started arguing and talking, and whoever has been here in an Israeli argument knows it's usually very not easy and not polite. But at the same time, we kind of came into a conclusion that when you go to the core identity of the state of Israel, when you ask yourself, what does it mean to have a Jewish and democratic state? Many questions come in mind. And we started talking about it, and we realized a very influential or core element in the society. We felt that as long as the Jewish identity of the state of Israel is defined only by the Orthodox definition of who is a Jew and what does it mean to be a Jew, it pushes us, Israelis from different religious identity, different perspectives. By the way, Jews and Arabs in a way, and I'll explain also the minority aspect of it in a moment. It leaves us outside of the frame. And why so? Because if the only way to be Jewish means to be an Orthodox Jew, And the only way to get married is through the rabbinical institutions. And the only way that someone looks at you and say, you're Jewish enough, is through the lens of an Orthodox rabbi. It means that so many Jews around the world and in Israel are not Jewish enough for the Jewish state. And if you're looking at it strategically, it has a major impact on the basic identity of it, on the Jewish identity of the state. But not only. When a citizen of the state of Israel, 600,000 of them, cannot get married or divorced in the state of Israel, it has also major implications on Israeli democracy. Because a democracy cannot be a state that so many citizens of it cannot be recognized as full or complete citizens of the state of Israel. And we realize that if we're not going to touch upon this very, very sensitive, hard question, many other issues that part of them will be actually addressed here in this panel will not be addressed at the end of the day. Because the core identity of this country is what you need to address in order to fix so many other issues. So what did we do? We didn't left ourselves with the questions, and we're not really upset as we are usually. We took my parents' Subaru. I just came back then from studying in London, and the only thing I got from my parents is kind of like this old Subaru that I could drive around the country. And we started driving around the country and meet people and talk to them and give them this agenda that I just talked to you about. And I said, it's impossible. The fact that we are Israelis, full stop Israelis, and we do not feel at home in our own home, it's wrong. You guys should join us into this mission of changing this reality. And we were surprised because we were really no one. We were a bunch of young people that had the courage and the motivation and maybe a bit of a vision to ask these people to join us. And we had another thing. We're early adapters of social media. As Tal mentioned, the issue of social media changed civil society all over the world, but in Israel as well. So we were one of the first organizations to start, raising our voice through social media, and hundreds and thousands, and now more than 100,000 people followed us and what we had to say. So we started by demonstrating against segregation of women in public sphere, because we thought that no religion can allow to push women to the back of the bus. And we started by ending flyers for freedom of choice in marriage in Israel and running such campaigns. And we continue on issues of what does it mean to have a Shabbat, and what is one Shabbat suits us all. And all of a sudden we became a real movement. And now when we go to the Knesset, people know that when I stand there and talk, it's not only me talking, it's the hundreds and thousands of people that actually became part of our group. So what do? We do three things today. And this is the mission that I want to go with, because the issue is not what's wrong. The issue is like who and how we can fix it. So today we're not only saying that it's wrong that people cannot get married in Israel. We have our own center for life cycle events that people from different Jewish identities, different religious perspective, can come and get married through us. Both, it's not legally accepted, but we give them both the legal answer that they need for this issue, but also, and more importantly, the cultural aspect of what does it mean to get married outside of their rabbinate. And you can imagine, hundreds and hundreds of couples get married through us every year, and hundreds of couples is like thousands of families, and every family is, who has ever been to Israeli wedding? Many of you, right? Hundreds and hundreds of people in the audience, and this is how a revolution becomes. People see that you can act differently, and reality changes by action and not only by discussing it. And the second thing that we do, and it's really important because we've realized that people want to be active and want to create change, but they know how to start. You see here amazing people that have done stuff, but most Israelis feel that something needs to be changed, but how do I do it? Who do I call first when I want to create change? It's a major question. Who do I call first? So we train people. We train people into civil engagement because we know that we knew how to do it by accident. Being being there, knowing that we don't know and just running around, but most people are less courageous than we were, and we teach them, and they join our family of activists that when we come to the Knesset for an event or for a discussion, hundreds of people not only come with us online, but come actually to sit there in the Knesset, behind the Knesset committee. and create change. And all of a sudden, when a member of Knesset wants to create change on issues to do with religion and state in Israel, they don't call anymore only their activists, but they also call our activists because they know they're going to be impacted by what we're going to say or write about it. And the last thing, we keep these relations very close. We really believe the identity of the state of Israel cannot be addressed only by Israelis who live in Israel. I think the Jewish identity of the state of Israel is an issue of the Jewish world. And when Jews around the world ask me, so what can we do? First of all, acknowledge the fact that you have a vote. Not necessarily a vote in the poll, but your voice is so important. And if your children are not going to be able to get married, or your rabbi will not be recognized by the Jewish state, it has major implications for the future of the Jewish homeland. And this is why I feel so engaged and so I have to do it every day to be speaking and having this conversation, because only together we'll be able to create this change, and this is something very important, I think. The last point, and I think it's a very important one. You know, I spoke about Jewish identity a lot, but in Israel we have about 20% of the Israeli society, they belong to a minority group. I think the minority issue on issues of religion and state will be solved when the majority solves its own things. Because its connection to the political framework, and because the ultra-religious parties mainly want to keep their monopoly so strong, they have implications also on other religions and other communities. So when we solve our majority problem, and will allow Reform, conservative, traditional Jews to be part of the discussion of who is a Jew and what does it mean to be an Israeli, I think that the Arab community will really, really have a great influence. It will be influenced in a positive manner.
Hello everyone. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Daniel Jonas, not Jonas.
Oh, my apologies.
It's a German name. So. I want to start with some personal anecdote of my own life and experience. I'm 35 years old, born and raised in Jerusalem in a modern Orthodox family and community. And it was quite a liberal family. There was almost no topic that was allowed to speak about, or movie that I was not allowed to see or something. But back then, when I was 15, like 20 years ago, there was one topic that no one actually spoke about. That my sexual identity as a homosexual. I mean, today there is a representation of LGBTs in the media. We see it everywhere, we hear it everywhere, and so on. But 20 years ago, in Israel anyway, that thing was not exist, especially when you grew up in a religious community. So that major gap between, in one hand, liberal families that you can speak about everything, but on the other hand, no one speaks about me, brought me to the conclusion that probably I'm the only person in Earth that is both gay and religious. And I grew up with that knowledge, with that sense of being totally strange, being totally alone. After I came out at the age of 26, my family and friends immediately accepted, and it was really good process that I had. Of course, it took them some time to adjust, but it was acceptance from the first moment. And then, as you mentioned, I was studying in Amsterdam doing my bachelor degree, and a week before I was supposed to come back to Israel, 2nd of August 2009, as every year, the first Saturday of August, there is a gay pride in Amsterdam. And I went downstairs, I lived just in the middle of town, went downstairs and saw that amazing celebration of people from all genders, races, religions, really people celebrating tolerance and acceptance. Came back home, after Shabbat ended, I turned on my computer and I see the attack in the Bar Noir. By the way, till today we don't know actually who went in and shot. And in that second, I realized that there is such a great gap between what I just experienced, the acceptance and tolerance, and what I'm going back to. So it's not enough that that my family and friends accepting, I need to do something about it. So I came back, and a few weeks later I joined the organization called Chavruta. Back then it was like an initiative, not really an organization. And we do two things in parallel which are very much connected. On one hand, we try to build a community. We try to build a place that people will feel that they have some space for them, that they will feel they're not alone, that they can hear stories, meet people that are in a way similar for their own experiences. And on the other hand, we try to promote and change the way the religious society in Israel, the Orthodox society, obviously, as Mickey mentioned, we Israeli, when we say religious, we mean Orthodox, unfortunately, but that's a fact. So we try to change that, the way that that society sees us, so it will allow us to live in a better place. So if I would like to end and to put those two dots, my own personal story, as a kid at the age of 15, feeling totally alone, I really hope that today, with our efforts, does not exist anymore. And that kid today will know that he has space, he has place. The religious community, the Orthodox community in Israel, getting more and more accepting, more and more open. And that's what we're trying to do. There's lots more to do, but I think we're succeeding. And there is a bright future.
Thank you very much for having me here. Feel very proud to talk about my work, about collective impact, and try to represent the Arab community that I come from. I did bring a slideshow because there are many things to say, and after 2 kids, I think I will forget half of the stuff that I wanted to say. Established in 2013 by Yifat Ovadia, who established 10 years ago Olim Beyachad. And it came, Yifat was in Wexner in Harvard with Dr. Samir Qasim, he's a physician. And both of them thought that there has been a lot of work of NGOs and the government concerning Arab employment, but there isn't a really breakthrough in the numbers. So what they think is that they needed to do something that is else and to bring the really breakthrough. And the idea of collective impacts from the name, it's a model that can be implemented in different aspects and on different subjects, is how to lead a change in the employment of the Arab community. We all know that it is really a challenging issue, Arab and Jewish, and Arab in the Israeli sector and private sector is really in small numbers, so we will see that. So what they wanted, Yifat, when she established it, is to make this major change in the Arab in numbers and in qualitative positions. So I will give you a little bit of demographic and then we will talk about our work. So as you know, Israel about 8.5 million citizens. We are about 20% of Arabs. We did a year of research, and although we are 20% of the Arabs in the population, but we are leading in the negative indicators. We are about 44%. We are overrepresented. We have overrepresentation of the poor, 44%, and about 25% of unemployment. These are really high numbers. On the other side, on the positive indicators, we are underrepresented. So we are only contributing 8% for the GDP. That means a loss of 30 billion shekels every year to the Israeli economy. And we are only 15% on the participation in the workplace, and only 5%, this is what we found in the private sector. Private sector held about 70% of all positions in Israel, and only 5% of them are Arabs. So we did this research, about a year research that Chaldor company did for us. We studied the candidate perspective. Okay, we studied the side of the companies, we studied the side of the candidate to see what is not matching and why it's not working together. We mapped all the NGOs and started to build partnership. The idea is, if this is a major problem, we need to bring all the stakeholders on the table and bring them to work together. For example, when we mapped all the NGOs, we found out that none of the 40 NGOs that we have today with us works in the mixed city. And mixed city, there are high percentage of Arab community, but nobody is working in these cities. And this cities is very close to all these companies, especially the headquarters. So in order to fix this problem, we need to build an intersectoral process and to create a synchronized effort. Who we have with us? Okay, we are the backbone organization. This is the model of collective impact. We brought Chaldor to do the research. Then we have the government with us. We have a forum of government representatives. We have 40 NGOs. And we have the philanthropy from the US and from Israel. We have the Arabic society, leadership from the Arab society, and young people who were able to get into the private sector, around 100 Arab young people around the ages of 30 and 40s who are working in the private sector. We have steering committee, and we have the Israel President Reuven Rivlin, who adopted or sponsored the side of the companies where they report for him what they are doing every year in order to promote Arab employment. This is like a great incentive, because if something is not working, we say, okay, you know, in 2 months we will have to report the president, so okay, tell us what you need. So we report for him every quarter, every 2 months sometimes, and the CEO of the companies meet with the president twice a year, where they report for him face to face what they have done in the companies in order to promote Arab employment. Just to say that this research was very deep research. We mapped all the companies. In the end, we have 150 companies that are very big companies with 50 million turnover and more than 1,000 employees. From the research, the sample of 43 Jewish employers, only 7% of them, the average is 7% of Arab employment. Even we have, in the end, you can see from 37 to 43, the companies that do have Arabs in their companies is not a really high level position, or it's not in all departments. Sometimes it's only in one department, like customer service or in factories. So it's not really a qualitative employment. And from this company, one of the shocking numbers was that only 0.3% of the employees are Arab that are managers. So, and we are not talking about VP or directors, we are talking only about mid-manager position. So the problem is clear. We need to bring a change in numbers and change also in qualitative work. So one of the research conclusion was that if you want to go to the private sector, we need to address them in their language. We talk to them in business language. We find them the business case. So on one hand, we were able to find the barriers of not employing Arabs, and to address them, like if they are living far away, or if the language is not, the Hebrew language is not good enough, or there is not suitable candidates. So we know there is not suitable candidates because about 50% of them don't even send their CVs to this company because they know that nobody will hire them. So we found the barriers, we found the business case with these companies, and this is the language we talk to them. We tell them the reasons that they are not able to reach out for these candidates. We find for them the business case, and we work with them together to find a way and to increase this number. The way we work is we have a key account manager with an organization and consultant, because we want to lead a change, a deep change in the companies. We do an assessment process where we assess where the company is, and from this assessment we build a 3-year work plan. This 3-year work plan, in the end of it, we want to have a company that is more diverse and more inclusive in Arab employee, and not only in low-level position, also in high position and in all the company. We never get into company if the CEO is not on board. That means that we enter the company, and the second meeting after HR is meeting the CEO, taking his approval. He's the one that promoting all the idea inside the company, because we believe that we have to work top down and bottom up, and we bring the company many tools that we developed or the NGOs developed. So when we enter the company, we build the work plan, we bring the tools, and we work with the company inside the company. This is another difference that was from the previous NGOs that gave the services from the outside. We are in the company inside, and we make sure that if we bring CVs of candidates, someone will know how to work with these candidates, how to interview them, how to accept them to the job, how to mentor them, and then how to promote them. And this is how we succeed. We put goals for every year. Last year, I can tell you, we had 6 companies that were pilot companies. 5 of them, except of one that had major financial issues, 5 of them met all the targets they put, qualitative and quantitative in number. And the idea that every year we will expand into 10 more companies. These are the most leading companies in Israel, and they are from different industries. So the idea that over the decade we will cover about 100 companies that are the leading company. And we believe that when we will change the workforce, making Arab and Jewish working together, get familiar to each other, and not hearing what the politicians have to say, this shared living will also affect what is happening outside of the companies. So if we will start inside the companies and influence people when they are working together as colleagues, as managers, Arab and Jewish together, then they can affect what's happening outside. Thank you very much.
So for me, it is important that the audience and everyone will to share with you about my activities, but to tell you first of all that I'm not part of any organization. As mentioned, I a former member of Parliament of Knesset of Israel. I had a privilege and the honor to serve my country and my community in the Knesset, in the 19th Knesset for 2 years only, unfortunately, but I will come back. And I think that since then, I used my high profile public of being a person that known in Israel to struggle against racism and discrimination. As you know, and I think the unique and the difference of the Ethiopian Jewish in Israel is the fact that we are a black Jew. And I think that when we came to Israel 3 decades ago, we didn't know that it is an issue. But unfortunately, I was only 3 years old, and I was immediately a proud Israeli since I came to Israel. Even all the difficult and even all the challenge, I came without my mother, my husband, buried 2 sisters, one of them 2 years old, was only 2 years old, and the other was only 3 years old. So with all the tragedy, we came to Israel. We are a Zionist community, and I think that my first my first activist was without even I'm not choosing to do this active, was when I participated in '85 with my parents in a demonstration against the Orthodox rabbis that say that there are questions about our Judaism. And these things, unfortunately, until today, it is still problematic here in Israel. And even sometimes everything seems is quiet, and that the Ethiopian young people can marry like everyone. It's not like that. Unfortunately, the rabbi that married us, almost all of them is Ethiopian, and the office, the rabbi office, the Orthodox offices still discriminated the Ethiopian young people. And even all of this, we are a Zionist community, and we believe that we are not a different tribe and not a different tradition. We are part from the Israeli society. I believe in the Israeli society, and because of that, I'm struggle, and I know that it is my home. Through the years, I focused my struggle against segregation. Unfortunately, we can find that a lot of the Ethiopian community live in the poor and weakest neighborhood, and we can find out that the percent of the Ethiopian people in that neighborhood just go and be higher and higher. So I work with the governments and promote a new policy, not only in the housing field, but also in a different field, in education, welfare, army, in IDF, to start to build a new policy that speak about integration. And I think that one of the success was that when we closed separated program in the army only for Ethiopian. You need to understand, we don't speak about new immigrants. We speak about the new generation that born here, that raised here and study here. And I believe that the way to strengthen the Israeli society and the way to help and to promote equal opportunity for the Ethiopian young people is to put them in more and more integrative systems and not differently from other. And today I'm proud to be a representative in a unique committee that established by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after a big demonstration that covered in the media all over the world in 2015. We are the Ethiopian community demonstrated against police violence. I still remember the day that I went to visit in one, we have only one jail for youth. And when I entered to there and I see that there is 14% of Ethiopians there in the jail from the youth, it was very hard to me because I want to understand that we are only 2% from 2% from Israel society. So 2%, and to see the high amount of personnel in the youth prison, and also we can see 20% personnel in the army. And I think it is not a natural and normal reality. And I spoke a lot with ministers, and when I was at NK, I fight against all these amounts. And I just, for knowledge, there is also 5 more suicides in the Ethiopian society. So even all this very hard amount, I can also say that there is a good thing that we came in '84, as I say, and we came without education. Our parents come from a very small villages and separated from others, very without education, without electricity, without running water. So we can understand that the people that our parents came without education. But today we can find because we can find because a policy, a good policy that Israel used to give to the young people a free and full scholarship. I can say full scholarship for every young people from Ethiopian society that want to get a higher education. We can find that we have 1,000 of academic. It's still, we can see that there is a glass ceiling, and we work to broken this glass ceiling. Today I can say that, as I say, I'm a lawyer, and I think that people like me that pave the way and also become role model, we have a lot of responsibility not to forget from where we came, and not to forget that our community still in the bottom of the line of the Israeli society. And the fact is that it is not only because the gaps, the natural gaps, because we came without education and we come from a third world country. It's not only because of that. I think that the first time that the Israel's government recognized and say, okay, we accept that there is discrimination, that there is a problem based on color, it was only last year when the Prime Minister, after I asked Prime Minister Netanyahu to work on a report that speak about racism, it was the first time that the law office, the law ministers work with us, with the Ethiopian representative, and report and establish a report, and also new tools that we work now how to create and how to bring to help to the Ethiopian society. And I think that still one of the important thing to know is that 3 decades we were very modest and very quiet, and it was very hard to us to adopt the Israeli chutzpah, as we said, and I think that in 2015 something happened. It is hard to close all your feelings, and thousands of people say it is enough. We love our country, but if we want to live peacefully, and if we want to strengthen our power as a nation, we must work very hard for equality. We must work very hard not to live in Israel as a different tribe.
So when I think about the idea of shared society, the idea that I have is a society in which the advancement of each minority group, each sector, means the advancement of the society at large. So I'd like to know from each of you, and I'll ask you each individually, but I'd like to know, how does advancement and growth for the sector that you represent mean advancement for the Israeli society? So the question is, in what way does pushing your issue forward bring all of Israel up? It's like the saying the saying here is a rising tide raises all boats. So I'll ask you each individually, and I'd like to go backwards, starting with Penina and then back to Mickey. And if I could ask you each to keep your answers pretty brief, 1 or 2 minutes, just so that we can get to some audience questions and keep the conference moving. So Penina, the question is, how does advancement for Ethiopian Jews, mean advancement and growth for all of Israeli society?
אוקיי, אם מישהו רוצה להגיד לי בעברית, זה איך כל הדברים האלה...
איך קידום האוכלוסייה האתיופית יקדם את החברה הישראלית בכללותה. בדיוק.
Okay, thank you. I don't think that the Jewish nation can offer and allow to itself to be a discrimination, to discriminate the black Jew. And I speak a lot to Afro-Americans, and I asked a lot about what happened with the Ethiopian society. And I know my parents raised to love this nation, and I believe in our nation. And it is hard to come after thousands of years, to come back after thousands of years from everywhere in the world. And it is unbelievable to see in the same building Russian, Arabs, Jewish from Arab countries, to find Ethiopian, but still to find that the lowest labor is black. It is not something that the Israeli society can hide. We can find out, I want to give you a little story. When I was young, I was very proud, Israeli proud, Ethiopian. I feel very at home. Maybe it is my personality, but each time that I opened TV and I saw only white people, something in my self-confidence broken a little bit. And I knew that I looked for the stage. I love a stage. And I remember that one time I opened the TV and I see black people. But when I put the volume higher, I understood that it spoke English and it was Cosby family. So you can imagine yourself, how you can imagine yourself raising your children, your white children, when they open the TV and they saw only black people. So I think that people that love humanity, people that look for human rights, and I know that it is our Judaism based on human rights. We are not forget that. Must to understand that to promote the weakest and the minorities, it is part of a healthy and a strong society. I know that until 2015, it was like most of the people say, okay, sometimes they saw the Ethiopian around criminal issue in TV, sometimes about poverty, poorness, but until 2015, they didn't really understand and understood how much it is broken a whole generation in my community. So I believe, and because of that, I work with the government. I'm not, they don't pay me the money, I'm volunteer, but I will work with every minister that wants to promote equality and promote the Ethiopian society and to show the world that in our house we are not discriminating no one. And I have the privilege to say that, I have the honor to say that also Nawa is a very good friend of mine and proud of that because 10 years ago, if you spoke with me about Arabs, it was a little bit far away from me. But in the last years, even I'm a politician and I have my agenda about Israel, and even I'm a Zionist, I know that we have the tools, and if we just want, we can promote equality in Israel without differences.
Thank you very much. the question is, how does advancement for Arab society within Israel create benefits, advance Israel at large?
Okay, so it's working. As I said, do you hear me? As I said before, we work inside the company, so we have a model that talk about raising awareness of diversity and more inclusive company, and for that we do workshops for employees and managers. The workshop address all their biases and the prejudice and the stereotypes they have. So we work like in a minor aspect, but then over the years and over the whole companies, we will affect many people inside the companies. And once we affect these people, we will affect what's happening outside. And the more we have more diverse companies, more employees that are Arabs, the more that people will live and be exposed one to another, and maybe it will lower their hatred and the racism against Arabs. The other point is that the more employed Arab they are, the less poverty there will be, and then the loss of the GDP every year of around 30 billion shekels maybe will be less, so it will raise the economy of Israel. For me, I can say that all of us working in the initiative, or the Arab side working there, we all experience these stereotypes and prejudice. And when we work there, I think of my children in 20 years, 10 years, when they will go to university or go to work. I don't want them to feel what I felt or to experience what I experienced. So it will affect the Arab people, it will affect the Jewish side, it will help us be living together and knowing each other, not hearing only the headlines in the media or politician statements that are really based on racism, and then it will change the whole life. Maybe I'm naive, but it's like a start point, and just to emphasize this thing that in order to do that, you can see how many people we brought into this initiative. We have the president, we have business leadership, we have 40 NGOs, we have the steering committee, we have the government, we have Arab young people, so we had to bring all these efforts to do that, because for years it has been happening, but in really minor scale, and this is the way to do it. Big efforts, and maybe it will bring the big change.
So Daniel, same question.
As Mickey mentioned before, and I think I mentioned as well, still the Israeli society today is very Orthodox oriented. Most of the population is not religious, but they are Orthodox non-religious. Means that when they go to celebrate bar mitzvah or wedding or whatsoever, it's probably going to happen within an Orthodox community with an Orthodox rabbi and so. So when we achieving, reaching a rabbi that will change his mind, that will maybe speak in more positive way about issues of LGBTs, it won't impact only of his own small community, it will impact eventually on the entire Israeli society, because Israelis still look up to the rabbis as an example, what is it to be a Jew? And if they will show a positive example, a positive way about LGBTs, so it will impact the entire Israeli society, and I allow myself to say that also the entire Jewish world, because people look at Israel and what happens in Israel as an example, and if we promoting more tolerance, more open way of Judaism, more accepting way to be a Jew, so it will impact the entire Jewish world.
Great. And Mickey, why should maybe even Orthodox people in Israel care about the disenfranchisement of secular Jews?
So I think that as opposed to the people that spoke before me, I don't represent the minority group, but I do know very clearly that as Pnina mentioned, and I think as Daniel mentioned, and all of us feel it daily, as long as the rabbinical monopoly of the Orthodox minority over Judaism exists in Israel, there is a real risk for Israel to keep being a homeland for all Jews around the world. Because I really see it clearly, and I speak a lot at universities and in campuses here, and also in Israel. People feel completely distant from the concept of their own Jewish identity, because they look at these people who force them to marry through their process, although they've never encountered their religious expression earlier. And they feel remote. They feel that they're not part of their own personal identity. And it can work in a stage of the first stage, and we are still at the first stage of 70 years of establishment. But when society goes deeper and people start asking themselves deeper questions about their identity and about the role of the rabbinical institutions and the government, it will break apart. And we see it clearly nowadays happening. More and more people choose to do it differently, not because they feel less connected, but vice versa. They feel more connected and they want to take responsibility over their own life. And if this gap between the legal system and the reality on the ground won't bridge itself, it will have very negative implications on our identity as a country. On the positive manner, I really feel that, as we all know, politicians are usually not leaders, they're followers. And when they would see the reality as it changes on the ground, they'll understand clearly that the reality in the legislation must change. And I really feel it's getting closer to us.
Sure. So we will take questions from the audience at this point. There are 2 microphones up front. If you will line up, and I'll allow any one of the panelists or all of them, as many of you as like to answer the questions. We will take questions for all panelists. Could you, I see a hand raised. Could you come up to the microphone, would you mind? So everyone can hear you.
Thank you. This is a question for Nala. Practical question. How do you get the word out about the employment opportunities that your group is helping to arrange?
So we have first all the forums we built are spreading the word, because we have about 100 young people, Arab people. We have 40 NGOs that have their connections. We are building more connections. Also, this year we understood that we are opening the doors in the private sector, and companies are willing to hire, and we are working with them to do it as good as it can be. And from the research on the candidate sides, we know that there is a lack of faith of that private sector is willing to hire them, and they will give them the real opportunity and real chance. So we are going out with a wide campaign for the Arab society, where the business sector, the CEOs, will be in the front. And we are just building it these days. We raised the money, and it will be about a 1.5-year campaign that will be in the social media, where the young people are there, and in the local media. And we will work on the candidate side to tell them that there is been a change, and we are there to make it happen for the best way. And so it will bring also the Arab and bridge between the 2 societies, so they will come there. Okay, hope I answered your question. Thank you.
I thought I saw a hand on this side of the room, but over here then.
Hi, my name is Isabel Maxwell, and I have done quite a lot of work in the past with Israel Venture Network and others, and my question really is both to Pnina and Noah. There is an example in Israel, his name is Asher Elias, who you may know. He has a group called Tech Careers, and what he did was to encourage taking from the Ethiopian community people and to take them and educate them in high tech, basically. But before he did that, he made sure that there were representatives from businesses in Israel, and if he got them to a certain quality and a certain rate, that they would already have a job guaranteed to them. And so the idea of actually getting businesses throughout Israel to actually guarantee a job if the people from the Arab community or the Ethiopian community or other minorities actually had exactly the same kind of qualifications, then it already helps them because the jobs are kind of pre-guaranteed. And I wondered if this is a model for you. And then finally, the late Tal Schneider was a marvelous example of bringing employment into minorities, and I hope that there are many other of them coming up in Israel, but also from here, between here and Israel. Thank you.
So, as I understood it, the question was for Noah and Tina,
Okay, I will just start and say we're working on two levels. First, we have many qualified candidates that have academic degrees and they are not working. Many engineers working as teachers because they don't have the opportunity. So we work in two levels. One is to bring all these qualified candidates to get into the companies because they are qualified. The other one with the NGOs, because we work as a collective impact, we work on giving them, for those who don't have, give them any qualification of any to make them more professional in different fields that there are lack in the sector. Let's say we know that there is a big lack of engineer in energy engineers. So we work with the NGOs to promote these issues. This is an example. So, on the other hand, we know that there is a problem in Hebrew and in English in Arab society because it's Hebrew because not all of them living near the big cities, and the English is a third language, so it's another issue. So we work with the NGOs to give the language skills so it won't be an obstacle. So these are the two levels we work to hire the people they are already qualified, and who is not qualified with the NGOs, we give them the profession, and so they can get the work.
Okay, and first of all, I'm sorry that I'm pessimist a little bit, but I just give you the reality as it is. So first of all, unfortunately, in one of the research, they found out that 70% from the employers don't really want to employ Ethiopians. So the first thing that we done, the leader of the community, is to come to the public sector and to speak with the ministers and to tell them that we believe that the example must come from the public sector. In one hand, there is a tool that we can promote and give and make more accessible to the young. But in other hand, we must work on the image and also to promote legislation that gives affirmative action. I can show you that there is more and more, in thousands, very Thailand thousands of Ethiopians that have academic skills, and still, unfortunately, they didn't find a job that in the same field that they went and studied in the university. So, as I said, I believe that it must, first of all, to come from the public sector, and we are not so, as I said, we are not a big community. We speak about maybe 5,000 academic young people that look for appropriate and good job, and I believe that Israel can solve this problem. And in the future, if we work on education and we fight against prejudice, and also we bring more and more persons to TV, that they are academic and that they are a role model, maybe that's employer, that the 70% of the employer will change and it will decrease.
Thank you. I believe we have time for one more question.
Question for Daniel. How many of the LGBT community in Israel who, like yourself, are from a religious background, do you find want to stay associated with Jewish culture and want to essentially stay living a life, whether it's observing Shabbat or the holidays? And do you find, and also maybe in the wider LGBT community who do not have a religious background, is there interest? And then finally, is there any alignment with the Arab LGBT community, do you find, in your organization, just in the theme of shared society?
Wow. So first of all, the numbers of people that are willing and able to be stay both religious and LGBTs is growing. As I mentioned, when I grew up, there was not such a thing. But because of the number of us that coming out, both as LGBTs and religious, allows others to see us as a model, to see that there is a chance, there is a way to live as gay, to have a family, to have kids, and still stay religious. Because of that, there's more and more Orthodox communities that are open their synagogues for us. Mostly in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, obviously, but we see it more and more. Actually, last week we had a big week called Pesach Sheni. I won't get into the idea of it, but there were like open houses that allow LGBTs from the religious community to come and tell their own story. And surprisingly enough, it was not only, or actually there was only one event in Jerusalem, but in the occupied territories, for example, there were some dozens of events in the most conservative religious communities like Shiloh, like Elazar, if people familiar with the names. And the fact it happened, and not only happened that the fact that people had no space and had to turn around and go back home, shows the big change and the fact that more and more people allow themselves. And it's also impact, as I said, not only, as you asked, not only the religious society, but also the wider LGBT community in Israel. A few years ago, a great friend of mine, Zorit, she calls herself a professional lesbian. She found out that she don't have a space, a synagogue to go to in Yom Kippur. So she decided to establish her own minyan. So she asked the LGBT center in Tel Aviv if they can allow her to do that. She set like 50 chairs, told her friends and eventually there were almost 400 people coming. The vast majority of them were not religious, but there were people, LGBTs, that maybe in the first time ever had a place to daven in Kol Nidrei without no one judging them. And I think that shows how our activities impact the entire LGBT community. And few words about the Arab community. I'm not an expert, but unfortunately, there is, I think, one or two organizations, Asawat, right? And in Haifa, it operated also in Jerusalem for a few years. But unfortunately, for political reasons, it's difficult for them to cooperate with Israeli organizations. Lately, there is a very special guy in Tel Aviv. He's a Palestinian from East Jerusalem that lives in Tel Aviv with his Jewish husband. And he now starts to establish a youth group for Palestinian LGBTs. But it's really hard to get there. But generally speaking, as conservative, the community that you grow up in, that's how hard it is to be part of. We also can talk about the Haredi society, for example, in that sense, which is very hard for us to reach out to. But it happens. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's about all the time we have. In the interest of keeping the